So today is our review day. Like before, some of them are blank because I want you to actually look and listen and whatnot. Others, because there is kind of a longer answer, I did fill it in for you. Okay, so starting off, chapter 13 at the very beginning, the result of gold and silver coming to Europe from the Americas. If you just want to say inflation, inflation is great. Okay. If you want to explain a little more, okay, prices went up. Okay. The poorer classes suffered because they didn't have access to gold and silver. Okay. As a secondary thing, I suppose, you can also include that we see the. Sorry. That's why I don't teach math. We see the creation of stock markets and lending and, like modern banking and stuff like that. Okay. But if all you were to put down is just inflation, like I'd give you credit for that. Okay. Okay. Mercantilism. Let me see. Where are you? There you are. Okay. Just some brief explanations. Okay. Mercantilism believed that wealth was limited, was fixed. Okay, and that basically it was like a pie. The bigger your slice was, what did it mean for the other guy? They had less. Thanks, Liv. All right. So you had more, they had less. So obviously your purpose is to get as much as you could so that everybody else had nothing. Okay. The motto, of course, was wealth is power, power is wealth. Because the more riches you had, the more power you had, the less the other person had. Okay, so wealth is limited, wealth is fixed. Okay, if you get more, everybody else gets less. Okay, and the more wealth you get, the more powerful you are. Okay, when it comes to like your country, then you should be working to make your country more powerful. Okay, you should be bringing wealth into your country. All right. Anything you explain along those lines. Okay. All right. You should be familiar with, the fact that, and this one's a multiple choice. I'll ask you, what weather phenomenon between the 15 and 1700s. You should be aware that there was a mini ice age, okay? It was pretty severe, between the 15 and 1700s, okay? That's it. That's all I want you to know. Okay? Now, I know we went over a lot of it, but not a lot of time on the test. So just know that the Earth did go through a cooling period in those 200 years. You should know that the very first English colony was Virginia. Okay. Does anyone remember the name? Ooh, Jamestown. Okay, so that's why I left you room there. So it was in Virginia. The colony was Jamestown. Okay. Basically, people went because they were looking for treasure. They wanted the same kind of treasure that the Spanish had found. Over 80% of them died, though, because there is no treasure in Virginia. Okay. What there is swamp and heat and humidity and mosquitoes and, junk. Okay. How do they survive? Okay, I think it is on the next slide. Kind of, sort of. Okay. So, like I said, okay, the French, they both try to find treasure at first. Okay. How do they end up surviving? Because of the natives. Okay, the Native Americans, first off, number one, literally gave them food. Okay. But there's no treasure, there's no gold, there's no anything. what did the English turn to? Farming. Okay, and who taught them how to farm? The natives. Okay, so anything along those lines. Okay, they survived because of the natives. All right, the natives gave them food. The natives helped them out. And so what did they end up doing in the end? They became farmers, right? And they were taught, once again, by the natives how to farm. Okay. As far as the French goes, I actually wrote it down for you, so you don't have to. They were sparsely populated. They basically, most of their colonies were just trading outposts. And they traded the natives, European things for fur. All right, that's pretty sure. I'm gonna give you like 2 multiple choice questions, like what did they trade with the natives? 3 wrong answers and then fur, okay, type of thing. All right. Also, I will ask you about the Dutch colonies. Okay, they only cared about money. All right. And I think I do ask, like, what was the Dutch's, or what was the only purpose of the Dutch? I'll give you 3 wrong answers and then making money. Okay. I think I do ask the name of their colony. Their colony was called New Netherland. And of course, it was taken over by the British eventually. What is New Netherland today? Oh, y'all are living in it. New York, yes. Okay. New York City was New Amsterdam. Okay, became New York City, but the colony of New Netherland, okay, became New York. All right, and you can still see, and this is just Santos being a dork. You can still see, places like Schuyler. When I first moved here, I'm like, Schuyler? And they're like, no, it's an old Dutch word. I'm like, okay, thank you, Dutch. All right. Oh, and don't get me started on Schenectady, the way I pronounced it when I first moved here. All right, that is also a Dutch word. All right. Places like Manhattan and Harlem. Harlem used to have, I think, 2 A's. That's the Dutch spelling, and Manhattan as well. 2 A's instead of just 1. The second part, the Hatton, not the man, type of thing. So yeah, all right. It's New York, okay? How do horses arrive in America? Does anyone know? Okay. The Spanish brought them, okay? Horses did not exist in the Americas until the Spanish did. And this one is also a multiple choice. I'll ask you, how did horses get here? I think one of them I wrote, like, they swam. I can tell you that's a wrong answer. Okay. But yes, 3 wrong answers, and the Spanish brought them. Okay. I'm not going to ask you, like, so then how did Native Americans stole them? Some of them got away, and then eventually they just began to wander, and horses, for whatever reason, populate faster than rabbits. So next thing you know, there's like thousands of them all over the continent. Okay? You should be able to give us a description of the life of a slave on a sugar plantation. Okay? 12 to 18-hour work days, 6 days a week of work. Okay, not a lot of food, not a lot of luxuries. Your life expectancy, if you were a slave on a sugar plantation, was about 3 years. Okay, slaves were basically seen as subhuman. Like, remember, they didn't have souls, so you can do whatever you want. Okay. Why was sugar so profitable? We did kind of talk about this. Whoever said that, yes. Okay. What was the European diet during this time, taste-wise? Yeah, bland, disgusting. Okay. Add some sugar, boom. Okay. Automatically makes everything taste better. Okay. You don't believe me? Sprinkle some sugar on some broccoli. All right, you won't stop eating broccoli. All right, Bailey's like, what the fuck? No, I'm joking. Plain oatmeal. Okay, yes, there. All right, now she's like, yeah, I get that. All right. Why did they need so many slaves? Okay. And you could talk about number one, the demand for sugar was high. Okay. So obviously you need to produce a lot. Okay. Otherwise, you can talk about the environment. What do you need to grow sugar? What kind of climate? Humid and hot. Okay. How many of y'all want to work 18-hour days, 6 days a week in a very hot and humid environment? Yeah, you're all going like that. So it was work that nobody wanted to do. So you needed slaves. You needed someone else to do it for you. Okay.
Did we say tropical?
Yeah, you can say tropical. Okay. You need to know the wealthiest, the most productive sugar colony, all right, in the history of sugar colonies.
Who's the French right now?
It is French, okay, not Jamaica. The next one. Haiti. Yes, I know today you wouldn't think it, but 250 years ago, it was the richest, most profitable sugar colony. Made more money than all the other ones combined. Okay? And I think this one, just to be honest, is a multiple choice. So, what was the most productive of all the sugar colonies? 3 wrong answers and Haiti. Okay? Pick Haiti. All right? Let's see. When it came to slavery, okay, how does slavery change with the arrival of Europeans? Okay, you can talk about number one, what did Europeans bring to buy slaves with? Guns, yes. All right. So you know, because you know there was slavery. There were slavers in Africa. They already had experience. They had been dealing with Muslim people, Christian people, European people from other parts of Asia. You know, but not to the number. Okay. And in this case, number one, right? Guns. Okay. Guns were used to buy. Okay. Lots of slaves. Because there were so many, okay, that were being bought and sold, okay, obviously, you can talk about the conditions aboard the ships, okay, cramped and crowded, whereas before, you know, if you're like a Muslim trader or someone from Asia or whatever, you only buy a couple slaves, you know, you take care of them, you take them with you because you're going to sell them, whatever. In this case, they were viewed as cargo, and so you wanted to make the maximum profit on your cargo. So cramped conditions, you know, horrible living arrangements on the way there. 20% would die on the voyage. Okay. Where did 95% of all slaves go? Yeah, South America, the Caribbean. Okay. So yeah, that's why I put that up. Okay. Most of them went to South America. Okay. All right. If you turn the page, then we move into Asia. Okay. And I did give you, you know, some of the stuff here. You should know, okay, a little bit about the Ming Dynasty. The Manchu come from Manchuria, and that is I know it's spelled Qing, but it's pronounced Qin. All right. The Qins become the modern day, you know, basically modern day China. Okay. They do, in fact, you know, establish what we consider modern China. They last up until 1911. Okay. They do acquire territory. They expand, so it grows. Okay, but unfortunately, it was the peasants, like in most kingdoms, it was the peasants that did most of the work and paid most of the taxes. Eventually, they do enter a period of starvation, and rice becomes expensive. So, corn from the Americas becomes the crop of the poor Chinese. Okay. The only question I'm 100% sure of is like what plant becomes like food for the poor in China, and it's corn. Okay, so corn becomes it. Okay. Okay. You should know that the shogun, okay, is the military ruler of Japan. Okay. So. Shogun, military ruler, okay? And if you want to add, he had the real power, okay? Emperor was just a figurehead. It was the shogun who truly had the power. You can add that as well, okay? Japanese relationship with Europeans, okay? Yeah, the Japanese didn't really care. Why? Okay, the only experience that they had was with Christian missionaries, all right, and they weren't always the best. Number one, okay. Number two, they taught the people that Jesus was superior to everything. So, the people would follow Jesus and not the shogun. In many cases. You also see different Christian groups fighting amongst themselves for converts. Okay? So you'd have one group, trying to gain converts, and you'd have another group trying to gain converts, and they basically just end up making a mess of things. I don't know if I ask it later. Who were the only Europeans that the Japanese allowed? The Dutch, yes. Oh, you guys do remember. Okay. And why? What was the only thing they wanted? Money. Yeah, they just wanted to trade. All right. They didn't care about religion. They didn't care about whatever. Okay. The Spanish, the English, the French, the Portuguese, everybody else was sending missionaries. Okay. The Dutch didn't. All right. Okay. So you should be familiar with. And I think I only asked you like one question about Russia. They were basically backwards compared to the other countries of Europe. Okay, in the 16 and 1700s, they called it serfdom, but it's still a feudal system. Whereas by now, Europe has eliminated feudalism. Okay. I think the other thing I might ask, and I apologize for not putting it right here, the Russian king, okay, is called the Tsar, but that's it. Okay. But that basically the Russians, okay, the Russians were pretty backwards, okay, compared to the rest of Europe. All right. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, like I said, it was called serfdom, but it was feudalism. Okay, whereas the rest of Europe had already eliminated. All right. 30 Years' War. Okay, you should know a couple of things. Okay, number one, it was Catholics versus Protestants, basically. Okay. If you want to say Holy Roman Empire, you can say Holy Roman Empire. They were the Catholics. But basically, Protestants versus Catholic, number one. Okay. First war where civilians were attacked on purpose. Okay, they actually targeted civilians. it was, and if you want to throw this out, you don't have to do all of these, but maybe one or two. First war where like mercenaries were hired, and you actually like tried to buy soldiers as opposed to just with volunteers. I already said attack civilians. Okay. It's the first war where people actually were promoted by their skill and not just because of, like Michaela's nobility, so obviously we have to give Michaela, a command. No, it was done by ability, by merit. And it is the first war where gunpowder is used. So we're moving away from, bows, arrows, swords to using guns for the first time. Okay. So Protestants versus Catholics, okay? First war where civilians are targeted on purpose, okay? Mercenaries, you could buy soldiers. First war where people were appointed by their merit, not just because they were part of the upper class. And first war where we see guns basically being used. Okay. The results, okay? The most important thing I want you to remember from this is that Protestants could move into Protestant areas. Catholics could move into Catholic areas. All right. Before this, remember, we still have that little teeny tiny bit of feudalism left, where you had to ask permission from the lord, the duke, the count, the prince, the king, whomever. Okay. But this way, if you're Catholic, you can move into a Catholic zone. If you're Protestant, you can move into a Protestant zone. Okay. That was the most important one. If you want to add some of the other ones, the Netherlands became independent from Spain. The Habsburgs became the rulers of Spain. You can throw that in as well. All right, but not necessarily what you need. Okay. Questions on the 30 Years' War. You should know that things like stock market and insurance are Dutch inventions. Yes, so don't forget to pay your car insurance premium, number one, but if you're paying whatever, you can thank the Dutch, okay? They're the ones that came up with that idea, all right? Those are the two I want you to remember, but I suppose if you want to add, oh yeah, they also, invented the stock market. Oh yeah, they also improved shipping and made bigger boats that could carry more cargo with less crew, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah. But the two most important things, that's why I wrote it there, is the invention of the stock market, the invention of insurance. Okay? Remember, when it comes to absolutism, okay, and I wrote it down for you, okay, how did France establish that? Number one, remove the nobles, okay. Number two, give them BS jobs, okay. Remember, Schmitty loves being the royal shoe catcher, and Michaela loves being the royal glove getter type of thing, okay. And if not, just think of Kirsten Dunst standing there with nothing as she's holding a rope. All right, type of thing. And then, of course, who's going to do the actual work, like, the finance and the war and the economics? And, well, you appoint regular people who will then be loyal to the king because it's the king who gave them this important responsibility, and they went from being just your average poor person to now basically in charge of the kingdom. All right? You should be able to define divine right. What is divine right? What gives a king the power to rule? Chosen by God, yes. If you want to say God's will, if you want to say chosen by God, that's what divine right means. Okay? So Mackenzie is the king because that's what God wanted. If God had wanted Raphael to be king, then Michaela would not have been born first. Boom. okay? Or died as a baby, or if there's an assassination plot, well, it's all part of God's plan. Okay? What keeps absolutism out of England? Because other countries, when they see that absolutism actually works in France, okay, Austria and Prussia and Russia, they all try to do it as well, and so does England, okay? But Parliament, okay? And literally this one's a multiple choice, okay? What keeps absolutism out of England? I gave you 3 wrong answers, and Parliament, okay? It was the power of Parliament that keeps it out. Almost done with chapter 13. Okay. The Glorious Revolution. Okay. I just need you to give me some of the basics, which is James tries to bring Catholicism to England. Parliament is not happy. So what they do is they bring Mary, who is his daughter, and she's married to William of Orange, who is a Dutch prince. And they are told, you guys can be king and queen, but number 1, we want a Bill of Rights. Okay? And number 2, okay, Parliament has the power to do everything. You guys are basically just figureheads, okay? You can sign off on things after we've decided what's going to happen, okay? So, James wants Catholicism. He's kicked out. His daughter Mary and her husband William are made king and queen with the condition that there has to be a Bill of Rights, okay? And Parliament will be in charge of pretty much everything. Okay? Which is why today, and that's the next question, what does King Charles do? Really? He's a figurehead, yeah. Smiles and waves, all right? Poses for pictures, okay? Oh, I'm sorry, okay? I guess going back, the other thing that William and Mary agreed to is that the anyone who is, king or queen has to be Anglican, all right? You can't be Catholic or anything else, okay? Oh, and you have to recognize the Presbyterian Church. And if you don't know, Presbyterians are the Church of Scotland. Got to recognize the Scottish people, all right? And of course, Catholics, you're okay, as long as you don't cause any problems. We'll let you still be. Oh, Jake, we'll still let you be Catholic, okay? But this leads then to today. All right, and if you want to draw King Charles just doing this, all right, smiling and waving, if you're a good artist, okay, and you can draw King Charles, all right, then yeah, you can put with his hand, all right, see how you do, all right, that's all he does now, is smile and wave. Back when it was the Queen, I had a history professor. Queen Elizabeth is a walking, talking tourist attraction, all right, that's pretty much it, okay? All right, the only thing you need to know from here, the American portion of the 7 Years' War, because it was a worldwide conflict, but in America, we gave it its own name. Where are you, name? I can't find it. All right, oh, French and Indian War, okay? And I think this one's also multiple choice, just FYI, okay? So, the American portion of the 7 Years' War, 3 wrong answers, and then the French and Indian War. Questions? And we are now on chapter 14, I think. Yeah. Okay. Where are you? 14. You should know that where are you, tulips? Okay. The tulip period. I hate this. Okay, sorry, give me a second. Alright, let's choose settings. This one? Yes, display. I think I have this memorized by now. Yes. All right, so you should know that the tulip period was a period of success, of wealth, of like all awesome things happening in the Ottoman Empire. And it wasn't limited to just the elite. Pretty much everyone in Ottoman society was successful during the tulip period. You know, everybody had stuff like soap and lemons and coffee, you know, things that had been considered luxuries before this time. Why do we call it the tulip period, though? What did the tulip symbolize? Oh, wealth, okay, power, all right? Yeah, and so people put like tulips on their clothes. You know, it's like y'all wear like, you know, whatever logo design you wear on your stuff. All right, people, I got a tulip. All right, I got a tulip hoodie, tulip shirt, yeah. All right, tulip shoes. Okay, I bought a tulip phone, and the whole thing. Okay, I got my. Well, yeah, I know. I'm basic. I have a Stanley, but it's a tulip. All right, I'm gonna call it a tulip. So yes, that was the tulip period. Okay, you should know, and I wrote it down for you. Okay. That the Taj Mahal, it wasn't a house, it wasn't like a tourist attraction. I mean, it is now. But basically that it is a tomb that the Shah built for his wife out of white marble. Okay? The important thing here is that we do see a mixing of both Muslim and Persian design. Okay, so we start seeing those things come together. All right. And I think once again, it's a multiple choice. And, you know, I think one of them is, you know, what is the Taj Mahal? 3 wrong answers, you know, mausoleum for the Shah's wife type of thing. Okay. In Japan, you should know, you should be able to, where are you, Japan? Okay. That entertainment, in this case, for the most part, it was typically only for the upper class, but, and I think I do give you 2 multiple choice questions where for the working class, what was their entertainment called? So you should know that in this case, what a geisha was. Geishas were, you know, I have to call them dancing girls, okay? But, you know, they did that kind of work, okay? OF, all right? But in ancient Japanese times, all right? And of course, kabuki, which is a type of musical theater, okay? And so that was the entertainment for the working class, the common class, all right? These others, once again, I gave you, but whatever additions you want to add, as long as, you know, it you know, shows me that you understand. The period of the Enlightenment, okay, basically it is a time when people start using either human reasoning or science to explain things. Okay, it is no longer because God said so or because that's what God wants. Okay, and this method was applied to, okay, did I read? No, but I wrote it on the sheet. Obviously nature, okay, Why is it raining today? Because God wants it to rain. No, it's raining because we have a low pressure system brought in off of the Atlantic, all right? And we're actually going to be in this system until like Saturday, because then a cold front is coming down. That's why it's going to get colder progressively over the next couple of days. It is going to hit by Sunday, and it's going to feel like winter again, all right? So as opposed to God's mad, making it rain, and then he's going to make it cold, okay? So number one, nature. Government. Okay, really? Divine right? God chose Schmitty to be our king? I don't think so. Okay, remember that government is a compact between the governed and the ruling class. And the ruling class owes us something, and we owe them our loyalty. And if they don't give us that something, then we don't have to follow them. Okay, and this whole thing that, oh yeah, God chose them, so you have to follow. No, that's bullshit. Okay, and then finally, when it comes to religion, okay, just because you pray to end hunger and homelessness, is it going to end? No. Who's going to bring about changes in the world? People, humans. All right. Yeah. Okay. You can pray if you want, but it ain't gonna do, pardon my religious language, shit. If you don't get up and hand out food to homeless people or help people find a place to live or do those things. Okay. It involves human action. Okay. Botanical knowledge and other knowledges. Just know, because I will ask. Number one, the idea that. And it's called bioprospecting, but just the idea that, we see this in the plants that grow in England, so we can assume that the other plants that we're examining probably function the same way, okay? Astronomy, okay? Now that we can observe the stars and the planets and the motions of the sky and whatever, now we can use it for navigation. We can use it for timekeeping. We can use it for direction. We can use it for travel. We can use it for all of these things. It's not just pretty lights. I mean, they are pretty, okay? But now we can actually make some practical applications, okay? When it came to the military, okay, number one, we're going to start teaching more than just war, okay? We're going to teach all this stuff. But number two, why should Schmitty get to be the general? Sorry, Schmitty. Just because Schmitty's family comes from the upper class, okay? So maybe Bailey comes from the lower class, but Bailey's shown a pretty good knowledge of tactics and warfare and strategy, all right? Even though they weren't born into a military family, okay? So how about, people earn their commissions on merit and not just because their family has always done it, okay, type of thing. So we see that during this time. And then finally, you can also talk about, we're applying science now to crops and animal breeding. And suddenly hey, we don't just have to let our sheep, do their sheep stuff with each other. I want sheep with only white fluffy fur, so I'm only going to let those mate together, and I want my cows with smaller horns so they don't poke each other. All right, so I'm only going to let cows and bulls with small horns to mate with each other. Okay. Oh, and I want better tasting milk, so the cows that have proven to give better milk, will only let them have babies and not the other ones. Okay, so selective breeding. Okay. You should understand, or you should know that, number one, the thinkers were known as philosophs, okay? The ones that, put all these ideas out there. And of course, their big thing was, questioning the government, okay? Because once again, really? You're telling me that God wants a 9-year-old invalid child as the king, as the ruler of France? That's who I'm supposed to pledge loyalty to? All right? No. All right? Finally, the only two philosophers I'm really going to ask you about, you should know John Locke. All right? Number one, he basically said divine right is bullshit. Divine right's a myth. Okay, no, all right. You need to think about it. All right. His basic theory was that there is this unwritten, unspoken contract between the government and the people. Okay, the government promises certain things, the people then in turn give their loyalty. All right. Does anyone remember those things? Thomas Jefferson later stole them. Yeah? Life, liberty, property. Okay? The government should give you that. In return, you give the government your loyalty. Okay? If the government violates those three things, then you have the right to overthrow them and pick a new government. That's called consent of the governed. All right? And of course, the idea that all men are created equal. Oh, by the way, it's literally just men. Sorry, ladies. Oh, and sorry, anyone that's darker than Michaela. It's only white men. Okay. Oh, and I'm sorry, it's only men who own property. So, well, maybe not all men, but those men. Okay. Adam Smith, he is the first to come up with the idea against mercantilism. He wrote an essay called The Wealth of Nations, okay? And basically it is the foundation of capitalism, all right? Wealth is not limited. Wealth is infinite. You can make as much money, you should be able to make as much money as you can, okay? People want to buy, sell, trade, okay? This whole idea that you're doing it for the glory of your country, that's bullshit. That stifles people, all right? You should allow them to do whatever, okay? Number one. All right? Number two, don't get involved, government. If you want to, I think I might ask you the definition of laissez-faire, okay? It just means no government control. All right? And what is it that we refer to as the invisible hand? Oh, right now, oil is getting really, really expensive. Why? Because there's not a lot of it, okay? So supply and demand, okay? If there's a high demand, prices go up, all right? Limited supply. But when you have a huge supply, prices go down because the demand goes down with it, okay? And Adam Smith said, yeah, it's the invisible hand that will control things, not government regulation, okay? When people want something, people will pay for it. When people don't want it anymore, then they won't, okay? So then you go on to do something else that the people want, and the people will pay for that, okay, type of thing, okay? So supply and demand, all right? And if you want to throw in some of the other things, allow people to make as much money as they want, because competition is good, okay? I'm competing with Michaela to make the best widget, okay? And who benefits from us fighting against each other to provide a better and cheaper widget? You guys do, okay? In the end, all right? You should be familiar with the criticisms of religion when it comes to the Enlightenment, because remember, human reasoning was applied to it, okay? In this case, where are you? Oh no, it was here, but in this case, number one, okay? Yeah, religious freedom, but if you don't believe what I do, get the hell out, all right? You should be familiar with the idea of theism, which is why I wrote it there, okay? Remember, theism, and we've already mentioned it, who, what is going to make the world better? Not your prayers, not whatever creator you believe in, but whom? You, people, okay? Yeah, you want to solve hunger? Go out, grow food, and start giving it to people, okay? You can pray all you want, but God isn't going to come down with a basket of food, all right? You're the one that has to do that, Okay, and so in this case, yeah, all right. It's once again human reasoning that's going to take care of these things. All right. How does Europe get ahead scientifically? Okay. Any one of these is acceptable. You don't have to give all of them. Okay. Number one, obviously, Europeans were willing to take pretty much anything. All right, and turn it into, you know, whatever. Okay, so any idea. Okay. Number two, we do have the printing press. Okay, so Europeans were able to spread their ideas much quicker, much faster, much cheaper. Okay. Number three, Europeans had no qualms about buying and selling knowledge, buying and selling people for their knowledge. Okay, this is how, you know, certain artists went from Rome to Florence to Milan to France to wherever. You know, if you're willing to pay me money for me to do experiments and give you the results, Europeans had no reservations about doing those things. All right. A couple of other external factors, okay, which I forgot where I put it. Okay. All right. I apologize. Oh, here we are. Okay. I'm sorry. It was backwards. Muslims came under a more conservative rule, or under a more traditional government, and the Chinese were more interested in practical knowledge as opposed to theoretical knowledge. Okay, so you know, if it wasn't like gunpowder where you could see the result right then, they didn't care about, you know, 9.8 meters per second squared is, you know, the pull of gravity on objects. You know, what does that do for me? Okay, type of thing. All right. If you turn the page, okay, then we're almost done. Okay. You should know that in addition to everything the Europeans did, all right, they also, of course, brought Christianity to the Native Americans. Okay. How did Europeans try to convert the natives? The role of the Jesuits, just know that the Jesuits were basically the missionaries. Okay. They were the ones that you know, tried to convert the natives. If you want to add that, okay, yeah, Jesuits would learn the native languages and then teach the natives. Jesuits would learn native customs and then, you know, adapt them, all right, to Christian whatever, you know, so, you know, Christianize the local gods, okay, and whatnot. Like I said, they would learn, you know, native customs, native ideas to be able to reach them. Okay. You can also mention the you know, the lesser. You know, they destroyed, you know, native temples. They destroyed native idols. They, you know, stuff like that. Okay. How did the, and if you want to, you know, like I said, compare, yeah, you know, like Saint Anthony, the patron saint of lost things, became Anagole. In the Filipino pantheon, Anagole is the goddess you pray to when you lose something. Okay, so, you know, let's just combine them, and there you go. In Bolivia and in other Andean groups, Pachamama is Mother Earth. Let's not call her Pachamama anymore. Let's call her Mary. All right, but, you know, they still do the same thing, type of thing. All right. Now, in this case, how did the natives react to it? A lot of natives did not give up their old beliefs. Okay, they saw Christianity as an addition, not a replacement. Okay, so we're still gonna, you know, I mean, I'm calling her Pachamama. I'm sorry, I'm calling Pachamama Mary now, but I'm still gonna do my old traditions. I'll just like throw in, no offense, Catholics, I'm gonna eat the little cracker, and I'm gonna go to services. I'm gonna light a candle, but I'm still gonna do what I've done to for Pachamama and whatnot. Okay. All right. The last couple things, mostly I wrote them for you just because you do need to know those levels, that at the top were the Peninsulares, and that they were Europeans born in Europe. The Creoles were second. They were Europeans born in America. 3, mestizo, which means mixed, was European and native. Number 4, mulatto, which was European and African mixed. Number 5, people who were 100% native. And number 6, people who were 100% African. That was the hierarchy in Spanish America. Okay? You should know that the Enlightenment in America, in what eventually became the United States, was one of the biggest influence on the Declaration of Independence, on the Founding Fathers. Once again, the ideas of John Locke were basically lifted by Thomas Jefferson and became the Declaration of Independence. Okay. You should know the differences between British America and Spanish America, and so I put them there for you. Okay. The British tried to recreate England, whereas the Spanish mixed with the locals, and we see the formation of a new culture, a new identity. Okay. The British brought women and families. Okay. Whereas the Spanish, it was predominantly men. Okay. Finally, you should know a couple things about James Cook. He was an explorer. He was a scientist. Okay. He made several journeys into the Pacific. All right, to explore. What was he looking for? Ooh, the famed southern continent, Antarctica. Never quite made it. Instead, he discovered what? Another southern continent, Australia. Yeah, close enough. They both start with A's, right, Bailey? All right, Australia, Antarctica. Okay. If you want, you can talk about how, in addition to explorers and scientists, what else did he bring along? Because we didn't have cell phones or iPads. Artists, yes, to draw all of the plants and the people and everything. And finally, celebrate Valentine's Day however you want, but me and, anyone else is welcome to celebrate that, he was killed on Valentine's Day in Hawaii, all right, by the natives there. Okay. And who were the initial colonizers of Australia? Prisoners. Whoever said that, yes. If you want to say penal colony, prisoners, whatever. How were the British able to initially colonize? Yeah, they sent prisoners. Okay, there. Eventually they saw that, hey, they're kind of living and they're developing, and okay, let's send normal people there as well. Okay? So, short answer and multiple choice, once again. I